Welcome to the Clause YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure, and more stable world.
Good evening and welcome back to Strategic Frontlines, the official YouTube channel of Center for Land Warfare Studies. Tomorrow, 12th of February, Bangladesh goes to the polls in what is being seen as one of its most closely watched elections in years. After months of political churn, youth-led protest, and a visible shift in the country's political balance. This election sees BNP as the principal political force, challenged by an alliance involving Jamaat-e-Islami and the National Citizen Party, which emerged last year from student-led protests. An energized and politically assertive youth vote has become a critical factor in this contest. To help us break this down, I am joined in by an excellent panel. First, a very warm welcome to Ambassador M. Humayun Kabir, President of Bangladesh Enterprise Institute and former Foreign Secretary and Ambassador of Bangladesh, joining us from Dhaka at this very crucial moment on the eve of polling. Also with this from Dhaka is Kallol Bhattacherjee of The Hindu, who is on the ground and will be covering tomorrow's elections, bringing us a reporter's real-time view of how events are unfolding. We are also joined in by Dr. Smruti S. Pattanaik, Research Fellow at MP-IDSA, and a long-time scholar on Bangladesh and South Asian politics. And finally, we have with us Dr. Kartha, who served for many years at the India's National Security Council Secretariat and currently serves as Director of Research and Academics at Center for Land Warfare Studies, bringing a sharp security and regional lens to this discussion. With that, Dr. Kartha, I'll hand it over to you and please take this discussion forward.
Thank you, Anjali. Thank you for that very lucid introduction. What we are going to start off with, Ambassador, if I can start with you, is I think the most relevant question is how different do you find Dhaka today than from what it was? I mean, you know the place, you know it like totally like the back of your hand because it is your own country. In point wise, how would you say Bangladesh today has changed majorly from before?
Well, thank you very much. And first of all, I should express my gratitude to all of you for inviting me to participate in this discussion. Well, as you have indicated, Bangladesh has changed and obviously Dhaka has changed too. A couple of things I should mention here. Number one is that this is an election where I think 51 parties are participating. But one of the parties that used to dominate Bangladesh politics, the Awami League, is not present here. They are not participating. So this is one, I would say, unique feature of what is happening now and which would be on the ground tested tomorrow during the polls. The second point is, I think, the youth, the new generation in Bangladesh is playing a very important role. Some argue that the NCP or National Citizens Party, which the youth who brought in the, I would say, uprising in July, August of 2024, their party has not been performing well. But I would say that the sentiment or the I would say the general feeling among the youth is very different today. They are more informed. They are better organized. They have better, I would say, higher aspirations, and they want a democratic structure in the country that would be sustainable, that would deliver at least a discrimination-free society, and also it will deliver justice to them. And at the same time, Bangladesh would be able to represent or present itself before the international community on a, I would say, on a footing of dignity and equality. So this is a new sense of, I would say, regeneration or rejuvenation among the youth, or I should say largely shared by bulk of the people in Bangladesh. So we are going to an election tomorrow. It is very different than what we have seen during the last 3 elections particularly. And I would say it is, to me, because I was a veteran of the liberation war in Bangladesh. So to me, this election looks like or resembles more like what we have seen in 1970 election, defining the direction of a country. So tomorrow's election, in my view, would set the direction for Bangladesh during the next few decades, in my view. So from that point of view, tomorrow's election will be very important, and I think it will have, obviously, it will have domestic implications in terms of the next parliament, how it would be shaped up. Then at the same time, I'm sure you're all aware that we are having also a referendum. So the referendum is carried through tomorrow, then it will have a long-term impact on how Bangladesh will be governed during the next few decades. Because the referendum would bring in, if approved by the people, will bring in lot of potential changes in the constitutional structure, in the governance structure in Bangladesh. And my sense is that that will have a much longer implication than the election of parliament for 5 years. And some people are now talking here that the election, parliamentary election, would be for 5 years if you elect a party or set of parties. But if you approve the referendum, that will set Bangladesh for the next few decades, how Bangladesh should be governed in the future. So these are some of the elements, I should say. And another point I would conclude by saying that the BNP and Jamaat, both are center right parties, and the main contest is being played out between these two forces and their allies. So it's a very different kind of election, but at the same time, I would say unique, given the backdrop of July-August uprising. And I think I am anticipating a huge turnout. I have been moving around the country. I visited around 20 districts during the last 1.5 years. And my sense is that people are eagerly looking forward to participate. So some people say that the inclusiveness of this election would be determined based on how large is the participation. And my sense is that we are going to see a large participation from the voters.
Thank you, Ambassador. That's really, really extremely well put, especially that part on the referendum determining the future of Bangladesh. I'll just go across to Kallol, who very happily for us is sitting in Dhaka. So, Kallol, how do you see the situation on the ground from there? I mean, I'm just saying in terms of the sense you're getting, this is, as the ambassador said, this is huge, in terms of the implications. And so, especially, I mean, this whole referendum thing being, together with the election, which is very unusual for any democratic process to have a referendum and an election together. So, would you care to take that on, that question?
Well, thank you so much, ma'am. You see, when we compare the current situation in Bangladesh with what happened for example, in Nepal in 2005 or 2006, what Nepal did was that they elected a constituent assembly first. And that constituent assembly was given the responsibility of drafting the constitution, after which the constitution was adopted in 2015. That entire process was focused on getting a constituent assembly in place. What Bangladesh is doing through this election, which is actually hyphenated with the referendum, is going for changing the constitution. Because if they get a yes referendum in tomorrow's referendum, then, as the ambassador has said, that Bangladesh will go for some very fundamental changes, and that will define its existence for the next few decades at least. Now, this referendum is about including the set of principles that are there in the 61 or 62 pages long July Charter. Now, the July Charter is about, because Bangladesh had a bad experience with the parliamentary democracy, and the leader of the parliamentary democracy, the Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina. So the July Charter is aimed at reducing the power of the post of Prime Minister and giving some of the executive power and some of the overseeing powers to the post of the President. So the system will now go under some sort of a change in which these two positions will be very much like, where they would be balancing each other. The checks and balances will be introduced. Some people also say that the post of the prime minister will become less powerful and the post of the president will become more powerful. Then the whole parliament as it exists today will also be changed. And then 180 days or 170 days ahead will be that period in which the whole process of including this charter into the constitution and then restructuring the governance machinery has to take place. So, in terms of how significant this election is, I would say that the election is only half the story. The real story is the referendum, because once the political party is elected, some parties like big parties like BNP are clearly very uncomfortable, and there are also these doubts on the ground about which result would come out first. Would it be the result of the election, or would it be the referendum's result that will come out first? Because earlier, as we saw in the rigged elections of 2014, 18, and 24, the result is to come in one day. Now there are these talks that the parliamentary elections result may actually come a day or two later. That leaves us with the question: will the referendum's result come before that? And if the referendum's result come before that, then the population will also be prepped up to accept the changes that will be sweeping Bangladesh in the coming weeks and months. So overall, this is absolutely outstanding. The kind of election imagery that we are seeing around ourselves. First of all, BNP that had boycotted elections in the past is now openly canvassing. Jamaat-e-Islami, which was in the shadows, is now out in the open, and then its leaders are now, we know whatever they are doing, and they are meeting the press openly, giving interviews, and they're expressing their opinions about very, very difficult issues that they earlier were very hesitant to handle in public. And then there are all these smaller parties that are aligned with BNP, or rather they are getting support from the BNP, because Bangladesh has now got a law in which political parties have to contest elections on their own symbol, and they cannot get the symbol of, they cannot be aligned with the other political parties to some extent, to that extent where their symbols will be neglected. So every party that are being, that are allied to BNP are also canvassing openly, and then they are also telling frankly that they are getting support from BNP cadre also, BNP supporters also. So overall, all these political parties, the spectrum itself is very different and very refreshing, because this is different from the last few elections. But that leaves us with the very fundamental question that what happens to the other big party, and where are the supporters of the other big party, that is Army League in today's Bangladesh. And I think that's a huge number of voters who are disillusioned, demotivated, and what they do in the election tomorrow and in the referendum page tomorrow, that will be something that we would watch keenly, because they haven't yet made up their mind which way they would swing.
Thank you, Kallol. That is, I can happily say this is one of the most complicated elections we're likely to see in a long, long time. So I
Yes,
go
absolutely.
straight. Yeah, sorry, you want to say something?
Yes, I mean, a lot of people actually don't understand what the referendum actually is, because I mean, for example, if you see the first point in the July Charter, that itself says that Bangladesh has a national language called Bangla, that is Bengali. But it also has many other languages that will also be now given the status of official language. Now that opens a very complicated page of Bangladesh's history, because Bangladesh as a country, as a nation in 1970 71 was created as a concretization of the idea of language nationalism or linguistic nationalism that started its journey from 1952 onwards, the entire Bhasha Andolan. But today, if you recognize other languages, then one very interesting question that is coming up even in the first point itself is that Bangladesh also has people who speak Urdu. And Bangladesh's entire movement, the language movement, was steered towards opposing Urdu. And today, Bangladesh may actually end up giving some sort of a recognition to Urdu, which is spoken by some number of people, I would say, some number of, a fair number of people in the country. So, starting with that sort of issue, then there is a particular article that will be changed where the term Bengali will be dropped. And that term Bengali will be replaced with the term Bangladeshi. Again, these are issues that will be done without much debate. If a constituent assembly was created, then these nuances would have been debated in public. So we do not know whether a referendum is the best way to take a process like a constitution formation ahead in a transparent manner. Because I think a constituent assembly always does a better job because it does that, conducts all these debates in public. But here the debate will be taken over by a single stroke of referendum.
Really, that's Smruti. To come to you, basically, what I would say, like everybody seems to think BNP will get a majority vote. We're not saying exactly how much, but unless it is now absolutely necessary that it gets a two-thirds majority. I mean, I don't know how they're going to. I mean, you're otherwise you're sort of reducing your own prime minister's powers. You're increasing the powers of the president. And I myself couldn't. I went through that charter as much as I could. I could make out head or tail of it. So I don't
No,
know how
I
voters
just
are going to
say what Kallol was mentioning about this, the identity. Bangladeshi identity was part of the constitution in 1977. So, it is getting back and they're defining it in the way of territoriality. But of course, the BNP also has said that it will insert the Bismillah Rahmanur Rahim, which was Ziaur Rahman time amendment that took place, the fifth amendment to the constitution. But let's see what happens to that. I would say that some of the criteria of the constitution, which is getting voted, one that Kallol mentioned, that reducing the power of the prime minister and transferring some of the power to the parliament. Somehow I feel that what is being proposed as part of reform, they have been taken some leaf out of Nepal, some leaf out of Sri Lanka, because Sri Lanka also attempted through their own reform proposal. I'm forgetting 19th or 21st amendment, whatever amendment it was, to transfer the power from a powerful president to the parliament, as well as establish independent commissions, which Bangladesh also proposes independent commissions. Second is, I think what is going to be more controversial is how the election to the upper house is going to take place. Is it the division is whether it should be based on the seat you get in the lower house or the Jatiya Sanshad, because now we don't have any house other than Jatiya Sanshad, or it is based on the PR. Again, I come back to the Sri Lanka experience. If you remember, Ranil Wickremesinghe, whose party did not even get a single seat in their parliament, managed to come and get elected as the MP of his party, the UNP, on the national list, and then he became the president. So in a sense, the Jamaat and the 11 party alliance of the Jamaat, basically they are thinking if they get the PR system in place, then even if they don't get elected in certain constituencies, but the total number of the vote polled will decide their presence in the upper house. So that is what they have proposed. But coming to the question of the two-third majority, I think I was looking at the BNP's campaign also to some extent in the social media and the television channels and all. What I feel is that none of the political parties actually are speaking of the referendum. Only have seen Jamaat speaking much more about the referendum compared to the BNP. BNP is concentrating on the two-third majority, which will enable it to come to power, because on certain provisions of the reform proposal, BNP also has its reservations. So if they get elected with a two-third majority, they will have a decisive say on how to shape. But I do understand, the number one, which is in the referendum proposal. There are four proposals. Number one and two are, I think, quite necessary in terms of the caretaker regime and also the independent commissions. I think. But also at the same time, I'm not as optimistic as Ambassador Kabir, looking at the way Bangladesh politics has gone in the past. We hope that his hopes come true, and Bangladesh really this time is transiting to a democracy. There have so many death has happened. So I hope it is transiting to a democracy where the opposition also has a political space to to actually give its opinion on various issues. That has not happened. It had a parliamentary democracy, but half of the time the opposition was not able to voice its opinion within the parliament. The mic is being switched off, and also I hope at least there is a debate in the parliament, not on the street. That is where my hope also lies, like Ambassador Kabir's hope.
Smruti, in that, I just want to ask you one more slightly loaded question. In case they don't get a two-thirds majority, who do you think BNP could ally with? I mean, there is like Islami Andolan Bangladesh, which refused to join the Jamaat, which has its. I mean, who could these potential candidates be? One, and number two, if they get that kind of majority, can they then delay this referendum or change its structure or put it aside? Is that possible? Because this is unrealistic. How can you implement this referendum?
See, it will be a long drawn kind of negotiation between the political parties. Islami Andolan, I don't even count them in the,
Okay.
don't know, maybe Ambassador Kabir will be able to throw light. I've seen them in all the elections. Jamaat is the real force of, in this particular election. If BNP does not get majority, are you implying that the Jamaat gets majority? So Jamaat is,
No,
if
no.
Jamaat
I'm
is
saying
not getting
my
majority, then BNP will definitely, because there are reservations which BNP has put in the, when the Reform Commission was discussing with all the political parties, there was a consensus commission. So each party's position on particular issues have been registered in written. So let's see how they're going to negotiate. If BNP does not get if Jamaat gets the majority, is a different issue. If BNP does not have the two-third majority to pass it in the parliament, BNP will also not easily give it, because BNP has its own ideology, its own pathways as far as democracy is concerned. So it will be a kind of hard negotiation between the two. But I'm a little skeptical about that 182 to 70 days the reforms need to be passed. So my question is, if it is not passed, then what happens? Though it says that it automatically comes into force, so I don't think the two political parties will allow the implementation of the reforms without putting their party position. I think BNP, if it does not get a majority, it is definitely going to get into a very hard bargain with Jamaat, and Jamaat is a party which will not allow BNP that elbow room to negotiate.
Exactly. That is what I was trying to get at without saying it openly. That's why I was asking you whether BNP has a backup plan, in terms of who it can. There's a bunch of independents, not that many. I think, Anjali, how many independents are there? I think, okay, she can't hear me. Okay, there's a bunch of independents, there's a bunch of smaller parties,
And
whether they can.
273, I think.
I think it's a very small number. That is one. So that's what I was trying to get at from you. But I'll come back to Ambassador and I'll ask him his view on what are the Jamaat's plans here, because we are hearing all these stories about Jamaat having a very preponderant influence. I will put it as influence without going into greater detail. We've heard stories about cash being provided. Just now we were talking about that. But then this is South Asia, right? So cash being exchanged and all happens. This is what it could be. But how do you see? I mean, is Jamaat actually transitioning, or is it, there's rumors that they have Nahidul Islam as their prime ministerial face. They're trying to project a more secular image and all the rest of it. Do you think that? What do you think of that?
Thank you very much. I'm starting from the bottom of your question. Yes, there was a rumor that Nahid could become the prime minister if Jamaat coalition wins, but it is now coming to the forefront that no, Mr. Shafiq, who is the Amir of Jamaat, he will lead their team. So Nahid would be one of the ministers. So I think that issue is now out of the question. Now let me go back to Kallol Bhattacherjee and to Siti's few questions that they have brought in. Number one is, it is not the question of sharing the power between the president and the prime minister. It is there, but that's not the core question. Core question is how to bring in the accountability in the governance. That is the whole thrust of the reform process. Because as Shruti has mentioned, that we have been enjoying a parliamentary democracy, but parliamentary democracy didn't really was practiced. All powers somehow concentrated to the prime minister. Parliament was under the prime minister's thumb. The political party, the largest political party, used to under her or the prime minister's thumb. And because of the political power, they could influence the judiciary as well. So now the question is how to reduce or bring a balance or ensure accountability in the governance, how to make parliament more, I would say, effective, operational, how to empower the judiciary. Already judiciary has been empowered. A new separate secretariat has been established already. And president was basically, he had no role. So they are trying to give the president, future president, some role. And as Shruti has mentioned, that in order to bring a balance, the parliament bifurcated now, meaning that upper house would be set up, and it has already been agreed that upper house would be selected or elected based on the proportional representation. Now the question is, BNP believes that proportion should be based on the number of seats in the parliament, but other parties believe that the number should be determined based on the votes each party receives in the during the election. So that issue is to be decided, but the proportional representation issue has already been settled. So upper house would be created, meaning that to bring in some balance to reduce the arbitrariness in the parliamentary practices, for example. So I think the reform ideas that are there now. The question is referendum. I think here is pretty complicated. I agree, but my sense is that people. I think most of the people, major political parties, Jamaat has been campaigning for it. BNP was hesitant, but Tariq Rahman has now come out. Mirza Fakhrul Islam, who is the Secretary General, he has also come out and now urging the people to support the yes vote. So if that is carried through, I think there would be 180 days for the parliament to discuss this issue. And here I should also add that all the political parties, 51 political parties are now participating. 30 political parties, major political parties, have discussed every element of the reform process during the last 9 months. So they have already worked on that. And major political parties such as BNP or in some cases Jamaat, they have some reservation or note of dissent in 4, 5, 6 points. But broad framework of the reform process has already been agreed by the political parties. And based on that agreement, it is anticipated that they will be able to come to an agreement or thresh out or give the constitutional language to this reform process during the 180 days. And the parliament would play dual role at that time. One, they will be working as parliament, meaning that government will be formed based on whichever party wins the election. And then at the same time, parliament would also work as a constituent assembly. So they will have a dual role during this 180 days. And suppose they have agreed on that, then the balance period of parliament will work as parliament. Now, on the question that you have asked on Jamaat, I think Jamaat, yes, Jamaat is, they have, I mean, they are smart, and I would say, in view of the fact that they have played a role during the uprising, in a way, it looks like that they have captured the imagination of the younger generation. So my sense is that around 470,000 young voters are there. Possibly bulk of the votes would go to Jamaat and the rest will go to BNP. That's what the impression that we are getting. But Jamaat would, what I can tell you is Jamaat possibly would do better, much better than what was their earlier record, meaning that around 12% of votes, 18 seats in parliament. General impression here is that Jamaat would do much better. And can they disrupt Jamaat playing tough? Yes. But I would say that whatever we have seen, they are ready to be a part of the mainstream. So my sense is that whatever number of seats they win in the next in the tomorrow's election, they will try to establish themselves as a credible, responsible political party, even if they are sitting in the, I would say, opposition, for example. So I do not see a disruptive process ahead. Rather, whoever wins, whoever loses, or whoever goes to the opposition, my sense is that the next parliament could be much more interactive, much more effective than the earlier parliament. That's the sense, because the younger generation and the country doesn't want to see the practice of democracy that we had from 90 up until 2024. So there is this general demand in the society that let us forget about what we have seen in the past and create a new kind of environment, new political practices in the for the future. So, in view of the public strong demand for a sustainable democracy, responsible democratic practices from the political parties, and I would say I am also seeing there is a demand from the younger generation, particularly against the use of money or the influence of money and muscle, which was a practice in Bangladeshi politics. They are very strongly standing up against that, and that may have an impact on the electoral process. And also, my sense is that in the parliament that we are going to have, if there is a balance between what BNP does and if there's a strong opposition, then perhaps we might see a better democratic practice in the coming days and months ahead. I mean, that's my hope. I hope that tomorrow's election will show us how things are shaping up. I'll stop here, and if there is any more question, I'll be happy to respond.
So hopefully it's the younger generation which is holding the established parties to ransom, saying you deliver governance. And that could also be one reason why the NCP has done so badly in the university elections. They've been trounced by the Jamaat. Acha, I think Anjali has a question. Anjali, please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. I have question for Mr. Kallol. Sir, with massive security deployment, over 90% of CCTV coverage on polling centers, heavy digital campaigning through Facebook ads, including pages posing as news outlets, and more than 120 million voters participating, does this election feel like a consolidation of democratic practice, or does the scale of control and narrative management raises new question about transparency and trust?
You see,
Are
this
you
is a
asking me
very
this?
important issue that when an election is also a point of concern because things can go out of hand any moment. Just to give and just to illustrate the point, you have raised, I would say that look at Dhaka today. Uh, the whole of Bangladesh, in fact, has gone into these 4 days of holiday. It's a national holiday. Now, out of these 4 days, 2 days are the weekends. What's happening on the other hand is that there is this complete ban on the vehicle of commercial on certain vehicles. Now, I was talking to people on the streets, and they were quite inconvenienced because many of them thought that they would go home that is like located 5 or 6 hours away from Dhaka. They would vote and come back, but that is not happening because they can't get onto a commercial vehicle in short notice and travel and vote, cast their ballots, and come back. If the commercial vehicles are not running on, that also impacts the movement of trains. So the trains are also getting delayed on the ground. So there are all these obstructions that have been created on the basis that on the basis of building some sort of a secure environment. So one factor or one sort of preparation is eating into the other factors of this election. That, if voters are not able to move freely, then what sort of free and fair election are we looking at here? Now that is also a reality. Now the interim government and the administration and the election commission have certain solid arguments. So because they anticipated disturbance by hooligans and gundas and extortionists during election time, and therefore they have banned the movement of bikes, certain large commercial vehicles, etc. So these are again issues that are being taken because the law and order authorities have advised the government to take those actions. Here, on the other hand, you look at the mobilization of the large-scale security forces, Ansar, and other, temporary security forces that have been hired. This is an election happening after 17 months in which the police has been more or less inactive. The reason that many attacks, many incidents of arson, etc., were left unaddressed is because the police was not really up to the mark. So the question, therefore, is to what extent would the police, with the help of Ansar and military and other security outfits, be able to really control and ensure security on the day of polling? Because the main reason that the police were not trusted for nearly 17 months is because of the fact that the people viewed them as being complicit in the violence of July-August 2024. Now, when we look at the police, at least prior to the election, many police people would avoid carrying weapons with them because they would tell that if we carry weapons, then people get angry by looking at us carrying guns. At least that is sort of relaxing, and police are carrying weapons now. And I hope that with the process of enforcing law and order during the election season, the police will gain some bit of public credibility that they lost during the uprising of 2024 July August. So I think this is also a sign that the military will ultimately have to retreat from the field. And General Zaman has been saying repeatedly that he wants to withdraw his boys and send them to the barracks. So once an elected government comes into power, and then they take charge of the home ministry and the police starts doing the normal policing, hopefully then the military forces will retreat. But let's see, these are all factors that will play out in the next few days.
Okay, let's go to the next burning question, the question of attacks on minorities. How is this being viewed? I mean, how are the major political parties talking about it at all? Ambassador Humayun, can I ask you?
Yeah, they have said very clearly that minority, majority, everybody would be treated equally and everybody's security would be ensured. So, as has just been mentioned by Mr. Kallol Bhattacherjee, the government has taken it very seriously. They are not ready to brook any violence, any disruption in the electoral process coming from whatever sources. So it may be from party hooligans, it may be from criminals and whatever. So government has taken it seriously. I think if the environment is secure for everybody, then majority, minority, everybody will be protected. So the government is taking a larger view of the situation, not focusing on any particular community or any particular political affiliations, for example. So my sense is, and I've been talking to our field coordinators from Khulna, Chittagong, Jasor, Rangpur, and others, and they are saying that the minority communities are ready. They are going to vote tomorrow, and they are quite enthusiastic as much as the majority community. So there is a festive mood in the country, and what Mr. Bhattacharya has mentioned, most of the people have left the city, and I'm sure he can walk around the city and see how deserted Dhaka city is today.
Yes.
So practically traffic free. Most of the people have left. They have gone to cast their votes, and those who are in Dhaka, like poor souls, we are in Dhaka, and we'll try to do our luck tomorrow, hopefully. So
I just
I
want to come
think
in
that,
here and say one thing, that the interim government has done a very good thing yesterday in the form of giving compensation to the gentleman who was lynched on
Yeah,
December 18,
yeah.
2025 in Mymensingh. His family has been given an assistance of some lakhs because they want to build a house for themselves. And then the boy of the man, the victim, that is Dipu Chandra Das, he will get a fixed deposit amount in the bank from now onwards. The Dipu's wife and Dipu's father both have been given financial assistance in the sense that they have not been given, but they have been assured. And this has been the order was issued yesterday. So I think. And more than the order for assurance and assistance, what I found was the statement that the interim government came out with. And I felt that statement was quite appropriate, and it was absolutely categorical. They said that the killing of a person like Dipu Chandra Das because of communal frenzy is a matter of shame for the whole nation. And only a process of justice can save us from such a shame. And so I felt that sort of a statement coming from the interim government was welcome. But nevertheless, the interim government and also I would say Jamaat and organizations like them, they don't acknowledge that there is a communal motivation to these violent actions, and they continue to believe that these are actions born out of some political process or criminality, etc., which I think is again a point that has to be pressed on from the side of civil society and media.
Yeah, I think that was a very encouraging one. I saw that yesterday. I'll come to Smruti. Sorry, she's been waiting patiently. Smruti, I'm going to ask you one which is slightly out of the current discussion. This signing of the deal, trade deal with the US, it is rather well in terms of timing. It just happens a couple of days before the elections, and giving them what apparently seems to be a huge advantage. If they, of course, there are those ifs and buts built into the trade deal. In that, if we can just quickly discuss what is the role of outside powers, what are they likely to see in these elections?
See, everybody, whether somebody is a investor in Bangladesh, somebody has business in Bangladesh, like for example, India and China are, China is the largest trading partner, followed by India. In investment wise, both the countries have invested. US also has its own interest. So therefore, anybody having a stake in Bangladesh would definitely watch the election very, very closely because it is going to bring in a government. What will be the contour of the next government, who is getting how many seats. So it will be very closely watched. But yes, one thing I also saw a lot of criticism regarding interim regimes, some of the agreement it has signed, especially I saw the one related to the Chittagong port with the DP World, I think UAE based company, which was an agreement was signed. There was also Chittagong port workers went on a strike and all. And even this particular deal, I thought that if the election is just a day after, why not wait for the elected
Exactly.
government to sign the deal? I really do not know. Maybe Ambassador Kabir will be able to throw more light that what was the hurry in signing these deals when you know that after 2 days we are having a new government.
No, especially since Smruti, the fact that if they buy US cotton yarn, they will get free entry, zero duty. And whereas a bulk of our exports to Bangladesh is cotton yarn. So it seems almost like it's a deliberate slap in our face. It
No,
may not be, maybe it is
I don't take it that way. Market will decide. If with zero duty they get it cheaper, let them buy it from the United States. See, there is a time factor. If you're getting cotton and how long it is going to take, you have to factor into many factors. If I'm a businessman, I'm getting 10 rupees less, I'll buy it from. I always believe in free market. Wherever you get free, whoever gets free, please go ahead and have that. But I
no,
think the factor which will be very significant in the context of Bangladesh would be that including the Indian cotton yarn which is entering the Bangladesh market, in fact has affected Bangladesh's own cotton yarn market. But there are reports that the quality is different, so therefore the Indian cotton yarn is much preferable. But I'm sure like the businessman will take it, because see, it's very easy to buy cotton yarn from India. I'm not speaking of the price here, because of the transportation cost will be much cheaper, because right now I think it is going via the sea route. Even if it goes through the sea route, it will reach much faster than the zero tariff this thing. But if I'm not mistaken, many of the item that is being traded between India and Bangladesh, many of them are also zero duty, unless until the state government puts some
Oh,
duty. I
actually,
don't know.
the point I was making, I entirely agree with what you're saying. I mean, it makes so much more sense to buy it from here. What I was talking of was the intention. What is the US intention here? That is what I was trying to get at. But going from there forward, I mean, is
I
you do
think
this just for yourself.
same.
What is
See,
going on?
we
Well,
also have the that oil thing with the Americans. So American will try to push whatever they can sell. So it is.
yeah.
I think nobody can escape Trump. So let us accept that.
Yeah,
So
that's true. I just quickly, we'll do a
Yeah.
quick question round on the India factor. I'm so far as I can see, and I'll address this to Kallol in particular. I think India is not anymore a major issue in the elections. It's all about corruption, it's about governance, it's about democracy, and I'm hoping it will stay that way. Yeah, am I right or wrong? What is the India factor, if at all?
You see, the India factor has already been blocked out. If Awami League is not allowed to contest, then you don't really have to deal with somebody who was always accused of being part of the India lobby or India's proxy, etc., etc. And the contest today, very significantly, is between the extreme right, uh, right, and the center right. BNP itself represents the center right. So it's pretty obvious that it is a contest between the parties that are arrayed on the right of politics in Bangladesh. Now, what that leaves out the centrist political space and the leftist political space. I would say both the BNP as well as the Jamaat also have some constituents that present themselves as radical. They are also trying to represent as umbrella formations in which people leftist orientations, such they will be speaking. So the India factor, very strangely, has gone the animosity factor rather has gone missing, because if you look at the assurances that have come from both BNP and Jamaat, they have both said that they want to have constructive relationship with the neighboring countries. Jamaat actually said that they want to have constructive relation with all countries in the region, including Bhutan, India, as if Bhutan and India are same, but that's just Jamaat's way of conveying its message to India. That's understood, and it was like it is from that point of view they are conveying that they want to work with India, and since Jamaat has mainly 3 4 points in which they are intractable, like on Tista, for example, which is again a very big issue for India because it involves the Chinese. So the India factor that is not a very big movement. But let us not forget that behind the scene, especially in university campuses, the mobilization is happening. There have been public meetings where India out meetings have been held, and slogans were raised. So these are also happening. But at least at the main political platforms, India is not the regional hegemon that they are openly talking about. But if you look at again the codes that are being used, the coded words that are being used, Nahid Islam and Shafiqur Rahman of Jamaat, they have been talking about the forces of hegemony, what they call Adhipotyabad. So forces of hegemony will be shown a red card in this election. So by that they mean that people who support or who are supportive of some sort of India Bangladesh harmony, they would be dealt with in a tough way. But at least they don't mention the name of India, which leaves us with some hope that perhaps they would continue on that path and would not take any very strident position on India in near future.
Okay, I'll just go to Ambassador. Ambassador, I'm just wondering, whichever government comes to power, whether it's a coalition, whatever it is, you have to deal with India, right? And if is this going to be like, say, if India proposes a huge, I'm just saying off the top of my head, a huge investment package, it is going to be very difficult for them to accept it without being labeled pro-India, isn't it?
I think the issue is much more nuanced. Two things I would mention here. The sentiment in Bangladesh, or the perception here, is that we want to stand up on our own feet, treated with dignity and equality. So that is what the basis of relationship. And I think BNP, Jamaat, every other party is ready to work with India. They acknowledge, they recognize the fact that India is our neighbor, so we'll have to deal with them, we have to live with them. But the basis should be uh, mutual respect, sense of equality, a kind of dignified treatment. So that's the issue here. So my sense is that whoever comes to power, or even whoever remains in the opposition, in the future, Indo-Bangladesh relationship will continue because we are neighbors, we are interconnected, we are interdependent. So it means nobody can sever that, or nobody proposes to sever that. But the basis of relationship would be uh, the respectful treatment, dignified relationship, equal treatment. So if those issues are or the relationship is based on those accepting those principles, I think BNP or Jamaat, whoever comes to power, Bangladesh and India relationship will continue because it's as I said, we are interdependent, it's multifaceted, and we can't live with, I mean, we are neighbors, so we have to deal with each other whether we like it or not.
Absolutely. And I think that's absolutely fair. I mean, any country should be treated with respect. And I think now India is also sort of, the whole diplomatic, I won't say posturing, the way Jaishankar, for example, did, it's all on a basis of respect for the other person. So that's, I think Anjali has a question. Anjali, go ahead.
Um, Ma'am, before we wrap up, I had a final question to everybody, to all our panelists here, but I think Ambassador Kabir has already answered the question. But anyway, I'll pose it to the other panelists. My question is that when Bangladesh wakes up after the election results are known, what will matter more in the long run? The composition of the next government, or whether this election is broadly accepted as credible, fair, and legitimate? Because from this discussion, it makes it very it makes one thing clear, that this election is not just about electoral arithmetic, but is also about the management of the transition. And the outcome will matter, but equally important will be how political actors, institution, and society respond in the days after the vote. So, if Mr. Kallol can answer that
Also,
question,
can
so.
I just add on one for that for Smruti? Smruti, what do you think will be the impact of women voters? Just if you can just get that also off. Huh? Yeah, please, Ambassador.
Oh, okay. This election will restore the dignity of Bangladesh as a nation, because people feel that we have been treated badly during the last 15 or 17 years. So for the people, I think broadly, holding the election freely, fairly would be the most important thing. If you can do that, then I would say we have crossed a big step. And then comes other issues gradually. So this election will be very important election for all of us, and we are keeping our fingers crossed. The caretaker, the interim government, the military, the election commission, political parties, voters, all stakeholders are keenly now, looking forward to having a peaceful, free, fair, participatory election. If that happens, that would be an achievement for us day after tomorrow, I should say.
Smriti, you want to come in?
Yeah, the 50% of the voters are women. So there is, I saw quite a bit of social media posts where some of the women may decide not to vote, especially perhaps it could be the Awami League voters, could be. I'm not sure. So many of the women are making appeal that this is the time to make a decision. You should come out and vote for the party which you want, because especially after Jamaat's statement on women, and we saw the funny thing that went around in terms of the tweet hacking of the Jamaat Amir's Twitter account. So we saw that kind of thing. But I think Jamaat has a particular view of women, and they have been, if you read their publications and all, it is very, very open. It's not something which is here, which is very hidden. So I really do not know Why suddenly people are suddenly rising up and saying, "Oh, Jamaat is saying this." This is very much known, but I think 50% of the women will also determine. It's also about the future. So the focus, I think, the political parties are also focusing on the women voters. Everybody is trying to reach out, so they will be, I think, a big determining factor. No matter which community they belong, they know that it is the time for their empowerment to go and show the strength. So no bill is passed which does not take that interest into account, because the women commission, I think there's a lot of protest against the women commission reform committee by the Jamaat and all. So I think I somehow feel that many of the women perhaps will vote for the BNP. Again, it's a guesswork, but I think they will vote for the BNP.
Okay,
Just
last
to,
and
if you
final
allow
question.
me,
Sorry. Yes, please. Yes.
no, I would say that the women would come out in huge numbers tomorrow. That's my
Okay.
sense, because this is also a decisive moment for the women to register their presence vocally, I should say.
Last question, we'll wrap up with this. Kallol, what do you think are the implications for India? I mean, I know that's a bit difficult, but as of this point, but I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you this. What is our stake here?
This, as the ambassador has said, that this is an election where Bangladesh is coming to terms with the fact that revolutions are all right. Revolutions are not always desired. They went into revolution in 2024 because they had no other option but to opt for revolution. That government had become so unpopular, and it had to go. But the process in which it went, it also left a lot of broken hearts. People were harmed, people were killed. So then, in 2026, now they want to go back to a more certain, a more predictable form of way of life. And I think, the ambassador has pointed out already, that as a neighbor, we need to give Bangladesh that space, and that I know it is not the right word when it comes to election and also to neighborhood politics. But in this sort of a situation, I think as neighbor, we also need to give Bangladesh that space that Bangladesh needs to create that sort of domestic consensus, so that they can go ahead and lead normal lives. Because, very frankly, the harassment that common people have to face daily in Bangladesh because of very many factors, say lack of policing support, lack of predictable public infrastructure, frequent cancellation of this train or that metro station, shutting down ahead of time. Metro tickets are not being available. Nobody seems to be accountable or responsible for any failure anywhere. Suddenly protests breaking out when people are fighting on the streets suddenly. These are signs of a society which is under a lot of stress. And Bangladesh needs a governance structure. And I think, we as neighbor, India as a neighbor, would benefit if Bangladesh can have domestic security and its law and order machinery can come back on trail. What I can say, because there was a question about me about the election and the day after election, what I would say is that the day after the election, Bangladesh will wake up with expectation, and there will be also a sense of uncertainty. And that's a very, very delicate moment. The day after tomorrow, when Bangladesh wakes up, it should wake up with that sense of certainty that we are going to get a new government, a government that will deliver. If that waiting period is prolonged, then there will be, I don't expect it, nor do I hope or desire it, but then if that waiting period is prolonged, then there can be disturbances at home in Bangladesh. I just hope that the process will be predictable here onwards, and that the society will get that sense of reconciliation of which they have been deprived of over the last 17 months.
Thank you, Kallol. I think I don't envy the next prime minister because the expectations are so huge. God knows how they're going to handle this whole thing. And if they don't deliver, then they're going to be in trouble, and the difficulty in delivering because of the referendum, which at some point I think we should have a separate discussion on that whole referendum thing. But I will
Exactly.
close this with the wishing Bangladesh all the very, very best for a stable, wonderful, fantastic election and a year ahead. Thank you all so much. It was a really enjoyable discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Bye.